Verstappen has his second qualifying ever under his belt. So at the Brazilian Grand Prix, which is what we're talking about today, the qualifying session was electric, and it was exactly everything we thought. Everything we talked about played out. Lewis did not end up, he was not able to get the job done despite winning FP3, which has happened. He's won FP3 three times. He's never gotten pole after. So, so Interlagos is going to be kicked off with Verstappen P1 and Hamilton P2. And I think it's pretty clear to everyone watching or to anyone following it that Verstappen really has something to prove and an axe to grind after what happened last year. And it's showing. It's showing in his sector times. It's showing across the board in his interviews. He's focused. He's laser focused, and he's ready to go. So let's get, without further ado, let's just kind of go in to the results. And I'll kind of just weave through the live blog. So if you didn't check that out, that was kind of fun. I'll make sure to do that for the race session too. But let's see. We have Max Verstappen P1 with a 107.508. That ended up being in the Q3 session. P2 on the grid. So on the front row, we've got Sebastian Vettel, then Lewis Hamilton P3, and in P4, Charles Leclerc. And he's actually going to be a P14 because of his grid penalty. So they didn't end up adding any extra bits or anything like that. No additional parts were added. So he's just going to take the 10 grid placements, which that's going to be really interesting to see him fight through the pack too. The last time we've seen that happen really, there's been a few races, but I notably think of Monaco when he got a little bit, he gets a little bit, I'll call it sporadic when he needs to be making up some grid placements. So we'll see what happens, but either way, it's going to be, if it goes according to plan, it'll be great to watch someone weave through the pack. If we get the Leclerc that really is in desperation mode, it'll be fun to watch. I don't know how good it'll be for him. So that's just worth noting. He'll be P14. Valtteri was just a step off today, and he was trailed. Just behind him, you had Alex Albon, who put it together, started to piece things together, but doing his job. He shouldn't really be anywhere else other than 6 at worst. And that's where he starts. So, we all too often have to see him fight through the pack like we talked about before. But at least tomorrow he'll be next to, on the same row as Alex Albon, or as Valtteri Bottas, who's a great starter. So that'll be good to watch. Pierre Gasly wins best of the rest. He's the only one of the bunch outside of the top 3 teams who has made it to Q3 4 consecutive times. And he's only been with Toro Rosso for what now? This will be technically 8 races. So he's been through 8 or 7 real races with an extra qualifying here in Brazil. So he's gone 50% of the time, made it to Q3. And as a car that really shouldn't, not guaranteed to be there and judged based out their constructor standing, shouldn't be there. That's a really good result from him. So that's something worth noting, and I wanted to call it out. And it's not like Pierre's watching, but I think it's just worth saying when a car is doing that well, when a driver is doing that well. Romain, speaking of punching above his weight, is P8. Both Haas drivers haven't done that in a while, are both in the top 10 starting in the points, and they are split actually by Kimi Raikkonen. So a tale, between P7, P8, P9, P10, a tale of drivers who've not been on the, have been just on the receiving end of either not great things happening or just have been really unlucky or haven't gotten the results. So it was a really, I don't know, it's kind of an upbeat day. I'm usually kind of a little bit more cynical, as the name suggests, but seeing as though we're in Brazil, close time zone to me, I'm not as cranky, and this today just seemed happy. A lot of the drivers, things were playing out for them the way they wanted. Carlos Sainz was the only one who was just unfortunate to see, but he was able to do like 2 laps or something like that. So he's going to be, he's not going to be in any contention, at least off the start, for the race tomorrow. So he'll technically be at the back of the grid behind the Williams drivers. So he just couldn't get his car out of the garage. He was having some issues. It was actually reported, and I'll go in and look at their tweet. So the McLaren official report says he probably could have went out, but they just didn't really want to risk it with Abu Dhabi coming up. So they kind of put this through. They were investigating, and it ended up coming out that he couldn't actually drive the car. So that's unfortunate for him. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And Lando's had his fair share of issues with the McLaren. So that's a big weekend for best of the rest, right? So Ricardo, if you remember, in the driver standing is in P8, and Sergio is behind him with Ricardo, then Sergio, and then Lando in P11. So between those three, and you've got Hülkenberg mixed in there, you've got Kimi Raikkonen mixed in there, you've got a lot of these drivers in there that they need a big weekend. And for Lando, I put the odds at 34% when I did the math on that model, whatever the blog says. So just about a third of a chance to jump into the top 10, but he's going to need his car to not DNF, and he's got a 32% DNF rate on the races this year, so he really needs to get through, and that's not a good start. That Carlos Sainz had the problem. At least it was Carlos and not Lando, but that's not a really good start considering they have identical technology in their vehicles. So he's got to finish, and he's got to finish in the points, and he's got a chance because his average, when he finishes, his average finishes like an 8.8, so it's rounded up. So he's going to grab a couple points here and there, but if he can get a P7 or P8 tomorrow, that's going to be huge for him in the race. But the problem is Daniel Ricciardo in P11, for the most part, looked pretty good throughout the session. He had a couple hiccups, but he was starting to turn it around. Now, we'll see what happens with him. He's also got like a 15+% DNF rate, so we'll see. His aren't as much technical as they are incident, but we'll see. So those are kind of the storylines to look forward to. Leclerc's engine penalty, Verstappen's going to be out for blood, and Hamilton's going to be hunting him down to prove a point, especially with Toto at home. Lewis has jokingly said it's been a breath of fresh air, which is probably not the smartest thing to say. But so Lewis, I think, really is going to be out to. It's Lewis. He's always going to want to win, and not to say that Verstappen's going to want to win more than any other time, but that Ocon thing, it still eats at him. I'm sure of it, and I think Vettel. The real interesting thing, again, and when you just kind of throw all this against the fan, the real interesting thing is the driver standings. So I'll pop over, actually, conveniently, while it's here, now that we've gone through the placement. And if you guys haven't, check out the site. Like I said, I've been rebuilding all this. All of it's rebuilt. And I've got this really nice system for the results, and you can filter it. But here's a driver's championship. You've got, in this race, and this is why this is so important, we've talked about the best of the rest, top 10. Now let's take a look. If you look at the storylines playing out for P3, Leclerc is at 249 points. So he's 14 points above Verstappen. And when you're fighting for those amount of points, like that is, you can make that gap up. The gap of, from Ricardo down to, I believe, Kimi Raikkonen was like 15 points. So, 31 to 46. That's a little bit more difficult when you're fighting for best of the rest. But Verstappen's going out in a pole position. So, that's potentially 26 points. And seeing as how Leclerc is going to be fighting through the pack, now he does have a Spec 3 engine. He has the engine from the Singapore upgrade. He doesn't have the brand new 2020 engine. I believe they're calling the Spec 3. But He does have the one, obviously, judging by his quality performance. He does have the fast engine, but not the 2020. He's still got to fight through the pack. And as we've seen with Albon, you guys seem to think, some of you out there seem to think it's very easy to fight through the pack, so we'll see tomorrow. But if he can make it back to where his natural resting position, no worse than a P4, I think that would be pretty impressive. But if he doesn't, I just kind of want the same people to go back on Albon and say, wow, that is pretty impressive to see him fight through. So he's really got to pick up these points. And let's not count out Vettel, who's right now a P5, and he's at 230 points just behind Verstappen. So 19 points with Vettel to Leclerc, and then you've got Verstappen with 14 points. I anticipate both of them making up a ton of time. I don't think Leclerc, and come back on this video and say, Nick, you're an idiot. But I'm going to say right now, I don't think Leclerc is going to make it back to P5. I don't think Leclerc will overtake Albon. Put it like that. I think Albon finished the race. I think he'll be P5, and I think Leclerc will be P6. And you look at the number of points that'll be divvied up. I think Verstappen wins this. I think without some sort of hothead getting in his way, with Ocon out, really the only other person that might cause him some problems I could see is potentially like a Ricardo if he ends up getting close to passing him, because if he does, it'll be late in the race. Maybe, but I don't even think that'll be the case. I think they have enough respect for each other now. You've seen them talk to each other. So I see Verstappen winning this, and then Valtteri I think will have a pretty good race, but Lewis ultimately will be P2, and it'll be like the Austrian race. So it'll be a big strategy thing, and I think ultimately, though, this will be the one that Merc loses, and I don't think it has anything to do with Toto, but I think Verstappen just wants it too bad, and you'll have Vettel just behind that, so in a comfortable third. That's my prediction, and I think they'll both pick up a ton of points on Leclerc, and Abu Dhabi is going to be very interesting, especially considering the fact that again, most people are counting Red Bull out for an Abu Dhabi win. I wouldn't, right? What were they last year? P2, P3? And that was the one where they were kind of battling each other and passing everyone, and Verstappen ended up getting Ocon back, giving a little bump out of the way, but I wouldn't count them out for that either. So this is going to be, people are underestimating the importance of the P3 race and how big that is. He just got that pole. Aside from anything crazy happening, this is going to be crazy. So make sure to check out the live commentary blog tomorrow. I'll be doing that. I think let's see how it does. But I think I'll be doing the live commentary, actual voiceover on the race page or over on the YouTube page. I'll do the live race, the whole thing. So make sure to check it out. Either way, though, guys, I appreciate you watching this. If you made it all the way here, you're awesome, and you're the reason this channel is growing, and I can't say thank you enough. So thank you for checking this out. Thank you for taking time on your Saturday, and I appreciate you bringing me along in this little F1 journey we're on together. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.